On today's episode of the SPMA Council podcast, we brought on SPMA alumnus Ryan Stacey to the show. He's the current video coordinator for the Charlottetown Islanders of the QMJHL. It was an awesome conversation. We talked about his experiences as a SPMA student, including the numerous volunteer positions that he took on with a variety of different hockey teams in the area. We talked about his internship experiences with both the Newfoundland Growlers and the Sarnia Sting, and the differences between both the professional side and the junior side. We dive in a bit into his role with the Charlottetown Islanders and how that's playing out. It's quite interesting, especially since training camp was underway when we taped this episode, and it's probably getting around that time where they have to trim down the roster in anticipation of the season starting in a couple weeks' time. We also talk about his initiative starting up the Hockey Minds podcast and how he got the idea and vision to create a resource full of a wide variety of hockey professionals. And we touch on how analytics is going to further impact both the hockey industry and the sport industry. Another important note: our social media manager Jackson Pretley, he's the one that's been putting out amazing content throughout the season. He made his official co-hosting debut on the SPMA Council podcast. So good on you, Jackson. It was great to have you on for this episode. Without further ado, we hope you enjoy this edition of the show. There's a lot of great things to tune into. So we hope that this one will give you lots to think about and lots to learn from. But again, without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is the SPMA Council podcast. How's it going, everybody? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I invite you to pull up a chair, sit back, and relax, and welcome you to Season 3, Episode 2 of the SPMA Council podcast. We're laughing because it's become a new tradition to do like a little dance before we go on to the show. You'll if you see our video versions, you know what we're talking about. Audio, it just sounds a bit weird, but we'll go for it. We're just vibing as the I don't know, as the Generation Z would say, or something like that. I don't know, but we're rolling with it. Great episode on tap for today. But before we get into that, let's meet the co-host for this episode, making his co-hosting debut. Not a big deal. Please welcome our social media manager, Jackson Pretley, to the show, coming to us from Windsor. How's it going, my man?
Going good. Thank you. I mean, it's going to be a great episode. Hopefully listeners love it. I know I had lots of fun. It's going to be a great episode.
Good stuff. We had this was an interesting one. We had on SPMA grad and current video coordinator of video services for the Charlottetown Islanders, Ryan Stacey, onto the show. For a recent SPMA graduate, the guy has an unbelievable amount of experience in the sport industry, specifically with hockey. And a couple things just to touch on before I guess we get to the full interview is just his commitment to the craft early on. He had multiple, like at least like 4 or 5 volunteer positions for during his SPMA career. And I'm just thinking, the level of sacrifice that took for him to get to the next level, which I think everyone can learn from if they want to they want to take on any experiential learning opportunity out of class.
Yeah, I mean, he had plenty of experiences. I know I learned a lot, like about just like taking advantage of any opportunity he had. I mean, I just love to hear about other people's experiences, and his were just kind of like one of a kind.
Yeah, 100%. He also talked about his internship experiences with the Sarnia Sting and the Newfoundland Growlers, both with their own qualities. When you look at the junior hockey scene and the professional scene, when it comes to operating a hockey team, so definitely tune into that. And his current role is quite interesting, especially considering he's pretty much in the midst of training camp right now, and figuring out which players could make the roster, and who does he have to prepare for to ensure they get into the next level. That level of uncertainty is quite the task can be quite the task to handle, eh?
There's going to be lots of hard decisions. I mean, probably lots of film, because he's got to, and just knowing like some of these kids haven't played in 2 years. Like, I mean,
No.
the Q did play last year, so they got a couple games in, but I mean, it's just going to be a whole new, like, essentially half the team might have not even played more than 40 games in the last 2 years, which is insane. So there's going to be a lot of film to break down for him.
Yeah, 100%. I guess the final point that I'll probably bring up is he's a podcaster like us on the Pod Squad. But it's so he touched on his work with the Hockey Minds podcast, and I gotta tell you, it's quite the resource to look at, considering the guests he's brought on, the content that he's been producing week in and week out since early 2020, like early to mid 2020.
Yeah.
And he also had like a 3-day event, the Hockey Minds press conference, the Hockey Minds conference, where he brought on a bunch of minds from throughout the game. And I just found it quite interesting that he's continuing his passion for doing that show. And it just speaks to when you have a passion, it doesn't feel like work, eh?
Yeah, I mean, if you love what you're doing, it's not ever going to feel like work, because you're going to be enjoying it the whole time, and time's just going to fly.
We're doing this. We're having fun. We're having a good time. At least I am. So,
So am I. Don't you worry. It's two of us.
Yeah, just the two of us. But again, this doesn't feel like work. And we hope when you listen to it, it doesn't feel like a chore as well. We want to ensure that we're giving you guys something that you'll enjoy, that you'll hopefully learn from, and maybe it'll give you a chance to take a break from the stressors of life. But I think we've done enough to yapping on the mic. But before we get to the interview, anything else you'd like to add on, Jackson?
Hope the listeners enjoy.
For sure. With that, let's get right to the interview. It's Ryan Stacey, coordinator of video services for the Charlottetown Islanders. Enjoy, everyone. All right, folks, for episode 2 of season 3, we've got another great guest. A Brock SPMA alumnus, graduated in 2020, currently with the Charlottetown Islanders as the coordinator of video services, coming to us from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland's finest. Please welcome Ryan Stacey to the show. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going good, guys. I'm stoked to jump on the show and talk about my experiences and maybe share some info for SPMA students. So thanks for having me.
No problem. Let's get right to it. Let's get to the de facto first word of the SPMA Council podcast. Ryan, what mindset have you adopted to forge a successful career?
I think honestly, especially going through SPMA and kind of learning, the different ways about going into the industry. I think my mindset has just been to be open to everything and anything. In my position as, with the video services, ultimately I'm a video coach with the team, but sometimes you see me doing things like taking meal orders or coaching on the bench or doing these little minor roles that, don't always encompass what a video coach does, but ultimately it goes into the success of the teams. So just having that mindset from day one, whether it's in the classroom, outside the classroom, just, being adaptable and making sure that you're always willing to do whatever it takes to, to help the organization or team that you're with.
And then obviously you're a SPMA alumni. So then during your SPMA time, you had plenty of like volunteer positions, such as some with local junior hockey teams, and you were a video analyst for Stathletes. So when trying out those experiences, what was kind of like your end goal with all of them, such as like finding a unique niche, learning transferable skills, or even like just building connections?
Yeah, I think connections was definitely at the forefront. Coming from Newfoundland and not really being involved in the game of hockey outside of house league, playing things like that when I was younger, I kind of felt like I was behind the eight ball. So just with those experiences, it was really important to get ahead and kind of branch out and meet people in the community. And at the same time, with those positions, some of them were scouting roles, some were analytics, even game day with the Niagara Ice Dogs at first. And a lot of SPM students kind of go that route as well. It was just really becoming diverse, and like kind of like I said in my last question and last answer, I wanted to make sure that when an opportunity came, I kind of had something to offer, and ultimately that's kind of how each volunteer position led to another, and then as the connections grew and my skill set diversified, it kind of led to future positions, and now I find myself in kind of a hybrid role with the Islanders, but. In terms of an actual position, when I started out, I don't think there was an end goal, but for me personally, hockey's always been the passion. And, if I could work in hockey, that was great, but I also want to be able to maybe work in other sports.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I mean, like, it's it took a lot. It takes a lot of sacrifice to commit to that. And it wasn't just one volunteer position for you. It was multiple positions with multiple teams, and a variety of different roles. So I imagine that the time commitment must have been quite substantial to ensure that everything was successful.
Yeah, it was a tight schedule for sure. Brock
Mm.
was really good in the way that with the multiple course offerings and some flexibility and kind of talking with some of the teachers, I was able to kind of build a schedule that early on with scouting was really the thing that I was heavily involved in, especially during my second and third years at Brock. So usually I would try to front load my schedule. A lot of classes on Mondays, early mornings, which people don't always like, but it allowed me maybe to open up some Fridays and allow me to go to different scouting trips and different tournaments on the weekends. So yeah, definitely a lot of time, and I think it helped that I was kind of staying on top of my work in the classroom. I was usually pretty good at that and not getting behind. But also I had a lot of people in my corner, people helping with rides and things that minimized some of the commitments and the time needed to kind of commute to different places. So yeah, I think if you want to get into this field, hockey operations specifically, you got to be ready to put in a few hours. And there was definitely a lot of time spent, in the community and doing different opportunities during those couple of years.
Gotta love those 8 a.m.s, eh?
Yeah, yes, yeah. Sometimes they were tough, but necessary looking back. So,
100%.
maybe at the time I wasn't so happy with it, but I think it was the right decision for sure.
Yeah, for newer SPMA students, each opportunity outside the classroom, it doesn't come without sacrifice. And that's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the industry. You have to be willing to give a little to at least develop some new skills, or push yourself outside of what you're comfortable with. And if it means structuring your classes to ensure that you're taking advantage of those opportunities, then so be it. Short term it might it might be a tough bridge to walk, but it's all about the long-term game, as they say. And I think you're a perfect example of putting in the time, acquiring the skills, and over that time, leading to some very, very cool opportunities, such as some internships that you took on specifically to conclude your SPMA degree at Brock. You took on a hockey operations internship with the Newfoundland Growlers of the ECHL and followed that up as a position as an analytics director for the Sarnia Sting. From an operations standpoint, what are the main differences between the junior level or the professional level? It can be in terms of the organization, the resources that you have to work with, the types of players that you have to see how you can make better, anything like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, going in, I don't think I really understood the differences between the two levels. I just assumed a hockey team would kind of have the resources available to be successful. And definitely with the Newfoundland Growlers, in a professional setting, it's done a little bit differently. Things are a little bit tighter. The budget is maybe a little more free flowing, just with revenue and things like that. And the Newfoundland Growlers are an ECHL affiliate of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So as you can imagine, money was not as tight in that organization, and definitely some more resources. And I was lucky enough to get in there and be involved as a hockey operations intern, but through a connection that I had made a couple summers before at just actually working at a summer camp. It's crazy where the opportunities come from, but with that opportunity, I was really involved in everything from ticket sales, community services. I was dressed up as mascots, doing community events, all that fun stuff.
Don't tell me you were dressed up as Buddy the Puffin.
I was on multiple occasions. Yeah,
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I can't take credit for the in-game. That is a special individual who has been thriving in that role for many years, but from time to time, I would take on that task in between doing video breakdown and some analytics. And again, at the pro level, you're really just trying to show you have what it takes to make it at that level. And that was kind of what I was trying to do. And I jumped in at the right time. We ended up winning the Kelly Cup during my internship. Kind of got to get the championship feel in the parades and the partying and all that fun stuff, but a unique opportunity. And then, as you mentioned with Sarnia, a very different situation, of course, an outstanding organization, and Dylan Sika, one of the best general managers in the CHL, very open to bringing me in. But in junior hockey, budgets are definitely very different. Things are a little bit tighter, and just, again, the nature of it's junior hockey. You're dealing with younger kids. You have to go about things a certain way. So I definitely learned a lot there as well, more so involved directly in the hockey operations department, just aiding through analytics. But both opportunities are great. And to be honest with you, I would suggest either if you were looking for an internship, especially in hockey operations. I think there's value in both the junior game and the pro game, but definitely fortunate to be involved in both and have some success, especially with the Growlers there in the Kelly Cup run.
And then you're currently with the Charlottetown Islanders of the QMJHL as their coordinator of video services. Although you were appointed recently, what strategies have you implemented for analysts to ensure the team is ready to go for the first game of the season?
I think it's just being on top of things early, especially as people know or may not know through my previous experiences. A lot of it was consulting and remote work. And I think when you kind of work in that capacity, you definitely help the team and you fuel information. But at the same time, you're not involved in maybe the day-to-day grind of it. You don't have to have things as quickly. The higher expectations aren't placed on you. But once you're in the team setting, that definitely changes quickly. And, just for example, last night, we 7-hour bus ride, play a game 7 hours back. We're doing video on the bus. And this is only in the preseason. So, deadlines are definitely tight and you got to be ready to adapt. And I've only been here, just over a week at this point. So it's kind of hit the ground running, and it will only pick up once our main camp in the regular season starts. But, in that analyst role, in the video coach role that I have, and other people have worked in that similar capacity, you got to be ready to just jump in and understand that, you're not going to know everything at the beginning. For me, I've always been a sports code user for video breakdown for people who are more familiar with the terms. But now we use Exos, and for me, that's a new software that I have to learn and kind of on the run. But again, understanding that I don't know it all at the beginning, just kind of taking it day by day, step by step, and not being afraid to ask for help. So it's been a challenging week for sure. But I think when you're in the right situation and you have the right mindset, you can be successful no matter where you're to.
Yeah, 100%. And, talk about not only the challenge of, going into a new team, but, there's still a bit of uncertainty of, how's this season, how's this season gonna play out. How's COVID gonna affect your role? How are the new players, are the new players going to jump in, considering that maybe some of them didn't have, a full season of maybe their first year in junior, or for the new players, a season of midget AAA in Quebec, or the Maritimes, right? So, what I find interesting is that, you're preparing for the season as a video coach, but it's sort of like a waiting game, I feel. Once when the roster gets cut down, and maybe you're thinking, okay, I think this player is going to make the team. He probably needs to work on XYZ. But then, maybe that plan gets thrown out of the window, and you have a bunch of new players who maybe you weren't expecting to make the team, and you have to work with those players to ensure that they're at tip-top levels. So I imagine there must be, a lot of uncertainty, but uncertainty is a buzzword in the game of hockey. Let me tell you, especially how in the junior sphere specifically, how the last year to year and a half has played out, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Everybody understands how last season went, and yeah, the QMJHL was fortunate enough to get some games in, but still a lot of restrictions and games being canceled, at a last minute notice, with a positive COVID test. So, in my role, and I guess other people in the hockey operations department and other teams as well, again, you just take it the day at a time. You do your work with the players you have in front of you, whether it's our rookie camp, whether it's our upcoming training camp. We're fortunate to have a number of players attending NHL camps. So kind of a carousel sometimes when you have players fighting for positions at the next level, which in the junior game is definitely something you love to see, and something we strive for, and something I've strived for with former teams as well. And I think just understanding that, again, you can't control everything around you like that. So just prepare as much as you can. And, if you do 3 hours of video, and then, the player, finds himself on a different team, or getting sent down, or whether he's on your roster or not, at the end of the day, that's your job, and you kind of just adapt and move on to the next project, or of whatever the team needs.
Good point. Really good points there. Really good points. And on the topic of hockey, and let's mix in let's mix in some podcasting into this, because why not? Let's flash back to mid 2020, where you made the decision to start up the Hockey Minds podcast, which has featured a wide collection of hockey operations personnel, scouts, coaches, agents. Literally every role, almost every role in hockey you've had on, and this culminated with the Hockey Minds podcast conference, a multi-day event where you had a bunch of speakers on to share their story and speak on their side of the game on a variety of various topics. Just want to know, what was the main motivator behind developing this resource, and maybe touch on your experience on organizing that multi-day event.
Yeah. So no, thanks for throwing in the Hockey Minds podcast. I always like talking about that where possible. But, as I said, with my early volunteer experience, at the in different areas of Ontario. But once COVID kind of locked everything up in a sense, and I was in Newfoundland, I found myself kind of missing that networking opportunity or those conversations that I would have in the arenas. And I had a conversation with Jack Han, who many people might know, kind of just doing essentially what we kind of do on the podcast, talking about different experiences and kind of giving my own insight and things like that. And for me, that was exciting. And I thought, if some Jack is actually someone I hadn't known before that, maybe there's other people out there that are in a similar situation that are willing to talk and share their experiences. So what actually ended up happening was I got the numbers and emails of about 20 to 25 NHL general managers and kind of start cold calling and sending out some emails. And I believe it was between, definitely. And I, not knowing any of them beforehand, I had a number of them reach out, a couple, Jim Nill, Brad Treleving, and some other general managers reached out and called me and had conversations about their careers and offered advice and kind of guided me in a certain direction. And it was exciting to get to talk to people at that level. Those are some of the the leaders in the game and in this field. And for me, it was just an outstanding opportunity to learn on top of that networking. And some of my friends started to hear about these conversations that I was having and started asking questions. And to me, I said, it's unfortunate because I was fortunate enough to be in a position to obtain those numbers, obtain those emails. Not everybody has that opportunity, but for me, I was able to get that through connections. So I just thought, maybe, other people would be interested in, and some of my friends started to reach out and hear about these conversations that I was having, we would talk about and things like that. And they kind of wanted to know, what was going on, what were they saying, what advice were they offering? And, for me, it was important to kind of keep the secrets of those conversations. They're behind closed doors, and I appreciate the insight that was provided, but it kind of spurred an idea that maybe there were people that were willing to share their stories publicly through a podcast or some kind of public source and share that information to people who just don't have the resources or the means of connecting to people like I did with these NHL contacts. And so that's kind of how the podcast started. It was more so a hobby throughout COVID, just to continue to network and also, like I said, share the stories with other individuals. And my goal was 50 listeners and 2 episodes a month every 2 weeks. And now we're at 2 episodes a week and well over 50 listeners. So, I believe I'm going to episode 110 now. I believe next Sunday or somewhere around there. I could have the number wrong. Yeah, I've been fortunate. A lot of great guests and some very exciting guests coming up, which have yet to be announced. So if anyone's listening, stay tuned for that. But and then just kind of building on that idea, having people ask questions and through the podcast, mainly I talk about people's careers, kind of the steps, and then some reflective questions. But one of the things that the podcast does lack, and again, it's just because of the nature of the business and some of the positions that these people are in, is some of their insight into the game and the tactics and things like that. So my next step then was to see who would be comfortable in sharing those ideas. And I was able to get about 20 plus people who were comfortable in sharing their expertise. And that's kind of how the Hockey Minds Conference came about. And with Hockey Minds Conference, it was, like you said, a multi-day event where we kind of just shared presentations through YouTube. No sign up or cost involved, just a kind of a free idea sharing. And again, just kind of building the Hockey Minds community. So at the end of the day, it was a hobby that turned into kind of a second job for me. I don't think it's more so work because it's fun and I enjoy it and I've met a lot of great people. Actually was looking for something the other night at the rink and actually ran into a former guest of mine who was able to help me out in Cape Breton. So it's just crazy where the connections kind of lead and you never know when those connections might help you on the other end. So very fortunate to be in a position to share those stories. And, at the end of the day, very fortunate that those people were willing to share their stories with me and then with the listeners at home as well.
And then obviously analytics are becoming a big part of sports. I mean, almost every sport organization now has kind of like an analytics department. So just from your point of view, looking long term, how do you think analytics will continue to further impact the hockey and even the sport industry as a whole?
Well, I think every day we're seeing a transition to its use and the magnitude of its use in the way that it's being used more and more every day. we see it in things, obviously the tactics and things in hockey, with that being my sport, very useful in just kind of evaluating players, evaluating scenarios and team matchups and all these different areas. But even analytics in things like fan engagement and ticketing and marketing. The Toronto Maple Leafs put their ECHL organization in Newfoundland, as we talked about before. But I actually found out from a presentation, I believe it was at Brock, if I'm not mistaken, that the reason they did that is because outside of the GTA, St. John's and that area of Newfoundland is actually the highest density of Leafs fans in the world. So these are the kind of analytics that actually go much further than just what's happening on the ice, and are able to, have a pretty big impact at the end of the day. So it's growing. The analytics themselves, the accuracy, the complexity of them are growing day in and day out. But I think also the mindset that they can be used in multiple areas is growing, and just as quick as the numbers are growing, like you said, with the mindset, it's going to take it to new levels. And I think we're far from the end. I think we're still definitely at the very beginning of the movement, and I don't think it's going to be an overhaul, but I think it's definitely going to be a major factor in decisions for quite some time moving forward.
You could say that using analytics wisely is maximizing your mindset. Did I plug the theme of the show? I may have, but we'll roll with it. But I mean, seriously, analytics, in essence, it helps you make data-driven decisions. And it's what works in business. It's what's worked in hockey, combined with traditional methods. And we're at a point now where there's all this information can be easily obtained. That if you're an organization that wants to be forward thinking and wants to stay at the top of their game, the least you can do is apply some analytic methods into your best practices to ensure that you're at peak performance, whether you're a hockey organization or just a business trying to be profitable. But look at Ryan. This was great. Learning about your journey in the hockey industry, the skills that you've learned over time from a student in SPMA to your current role now with the Charlottetown Islanders. But as is tradition with the SPMA Council podcast, we'd like to give the guest the last word, just to say whatever's on their mind, what's going on now with their life, if you will. But so Ryan, thank you so much again, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, listen, thank you guys again for having me on. It's always nice to be on the other side of the mic. Usually I'm the one asking questions, so kind of nice to offer some insight and things like that. But no, I think the last word maybe is just to tell people, don't be afraid to reach out if they have any questions or are looking for connections. As many people as I know, my connections know even more connections. So I'm always happy to put you in contact with the right people who may be able to help you or just teach you something in sports or in the hockey industry. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there, especially at Brock. There's so many opportunities. I worked with multiple teams in the Niagara area, and if you go to Toronto, you're opening up a whole new capacity for work and opportunities. So maximize your time. And again, guys, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Ryan, it was an absolute pleasure. Thanks again, man.
Thank you.